Hello, everybody. We are doing Ouija Wednesday a day early because I am going to be out of town tomorrow doing something really, really, really cool. I just realized I haven't said this anywhere on social media, but tomorrow I'm going to Vegas to get batok, which is the traditional Filipino tattoo. You have to get it from an actual like mamba batok, and that's what you call someone who does the ritual. It's like a whole thing. I'm very excited. Um, I think I'm getting it on my arm, but you have to like work with him on like what the symbols are going to be. Because it depends on like my lineage, what I do for a living and stuff like that. So very excited about that. I'm definitely going to document all of that and post that at some point. Hello, Lucic, regards, Peabody baby girl. How are y'all doing? Thank you for joining us a day early. Anyways, enough about that. Oh yeah, I forgot to show my mug. Hello, happy Ouija Tuesday. It's not as catchy as Ouija Wednesday, but it's okay. It will do. So tonight I have a very special guest. I'm very excited for you all to meet her. Meet, I guess, speak with, whatever. She's a very talented screenwriter, and also kind of psychic, maybe. And we'll be doing readings at the end of the stream for me and for people in the chat. So make sure you stick around. We'll be doing that in like 45 minutes. So get ready for Chris, Courtney, Martin.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for joining the show tonight.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
Oh my God. Pleasure is all mine. So why don't you share a little bit about what you do?
Well, I am a screenwriter. First is what I say. You know, I have psychic abilities, but I'm a screenwriter and producer. I'm here to do film. You know, in this community, you have this term called light worker, which is somebody who's here to help and spread love and spread knowledge and you know, spread good and speak truth. And to me, film is the medium to do that. So I always say I'm a screenwriter first, but yeah, I've been writing since I was a little kid. At some points, I honestly feel like I might have channeled some of my material. I talk about this one project that I wrote called Prodigal that I wrote really in like 3 days. I drafted it and did the whole first draft in 3 days, and it felt like I was channeling. Like all I did for 3 days was write and then use the bathroom and sleep. So I guess I've been tapping into this before I even knew what this was. And I'm glad to be able to bring this together with my work life.
I love that. I love that you, I feel like I'm echoing now. Am I echoing for you?
You sound good for me.
Oh, okay. I love making that connection between helping others and the way, like I guess I was gonna say medium, but then that's confusing. But like the medium in which you want to help people is through entertainment, and I feel like I don't know, people don't see the value in that as often as they should. You know, like it's easy like it's easy as an entertainer or creator to kind of feel like what we're doing is, we're just like indulging ourselves. We just like want like attention. And it's like, no, it's so much more. It can be so much more than that. And it can be powerful. Like story is the most important thing, in my opinion. Story has the power to change people, move people, inspire people, like literally everything. Anyways.
Yeah. Story religious texts are told via story. You know, there's this old adage in the business, like if you want to send a message, write a telegram or something like that. And I think that's like the most privileged position you can take, to look at a platform and be like, well, I'm just going to talk about some stuff that doesn't impact anyone.
Right.
So yeah. I find that a lot of us are sort of, you know, and it doesn't have to be some big, huge social message necessarily, but, you know, just sort of talking about what it is, this human experience that we share, and using it as a medium to tell truth and to understand each other, I think is the artist's responsibility. Otherwise, it's not really art.
Absolutely. So are there any recent projects of yours that you're able to talk a little bit about? Tell us a little bit about.
We are, I have a project called Charcuterie, that is very close to, I believe, being shot. We have the amazing Reagan Gomez, who's directing. Just one of my favorite people in the industry, has been for years. Just such a wonderful collaborator. And this particular story is about gentrification in West Philly, which is actually where I grew up, and Reagan partially grew up in Philly as well. So, this is just in the way that project kind of came together, just even all that sort of the kismet around that just supported what I was saying about this medium being used for good, and how I feel like the divine has supported that, just the way things fell together, and all the coincidences that had to take place for us to get where we are now. And I have a couple other things that are in the works that I can't really talk about right now, but hopefully soon.
Awesome. We are looking forward to that. So we met a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a month or so ago online. And you had told me a little bit about some paranormal experiences that you've had. And I know my listeners love hearing this type of stuff. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to share that with us.
Yes. So quite a bit before I identified as a psychic. Just to give a little bit of background, this gift, or whatever these gifts kind of run in my family. Like, someone is about to pass away, a lot of the times, my mother or other people in my family will have had a dream about that person with another relative who's already on the other side, really at that capacity. And I've been, talking to myself and seeing weird little daydreams in my mind's eye since I was a little kid, but I thought it was just overactive imagination. I'm glad I'm catching you before you go to Vegas, because the story takes place in Vegas.
Oh, right.
So a couple years ago, not long after I moved back to Los Angeles, because there was a little flip-flopping there, to settle, I was invited on a road trip to see Bon Jovi in Vegas. And the invitation I received was via Instagram, right? From someone who, I'm not gonna say their name, but they had the same name as another friend of mine. So the person who ended up inviting me was somebody that I kind of knew from college, not well enough to have accepted this invitation. Had I known, it would have been a little weird to me. But because people are always changing their names and their avatars and stuff on Instagram, I thought this was my other friend who had the same name. So by the time she's like, I got the ticket and blah, 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 and all that. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So by the time I realized this isn't, a totally different person, I'm like, well, I'm not going to back out and be like, I don't know you like that. That's a very mean thing to do.
So
even though my instincts were telling me to do that. And I probably should have listened to them. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm in LA. It's my last few years of my 20s. I have always been a homebody and have never done anything fun or crazy. So I guess we're road tripping to Las Vegas to see Bon Jovi. So this young lady is a couple hours late picking me up because she decided to have her car service, which I'm like, that's a good idea. But we're getting to know each other a little bit more in the car, because we've only had a few classes together in college. And I want to say we're halfway to Vegas. Because we've already planned to go see the I don't know if I should say the name of the museum if we're going to get sued or whatever, but this haunted museum run by a guy who has a show on the Travel Channel. I'm just going to come out and say it, the Zach Bagans Museum. And I didn't really know anything about him. I didn't watch the show, and I thought it was just going to be like some corny, like touristy thing, like a Halloween haunted house that pops up, but just year round. And I'm like all about that. I'm a horror writer. I'm like, cool, let's do it. So we're halfway to Vegas when this girl is like, well, I just wanted to be honest. The reason that I really wanted you to come with me on this trip, the reason we're going to this museum is because I have this really deep-seated fear of taxidermy, and I'm trying to face my fears and I need support. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I can be that.
Why did she think you were the person for that?
I don't know. I don't know. Like that's a very good question. Questions that are questions I should have asked. So I'm me being like a healer, and before I even identified as a healer, like, you know, just being a good person, I'm like, okay, I'm on the way. We're gonna do this, whatever. So we get there, we wait in line, and the museum is housed in, I think it's like the oldest mansion in Las Vegas or something like that. So it's got a lot of rooms, but it's not like gigantic, because that's what the old style mansions are like. And so we get into the lobby. They make us sign a waiver. They make us sign this piece of paper and there's also a sign that says, if one of you in your tour group decide to leave before the tour is over, then the tour is over for everybody. So
That's
all
so not fair.
The psychological BS is starting, and I'm like, okay, because, you know, I came with one other person, but they'll group you with like 8 other strangers to get a group of 10 or whatever their number is. I actually think it might have been a group of 8. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little worrisome, but we're here. We paid. We waited in line for 35 minutes, whatever. And so I can't remember if the girl I'm with tells me or if I just am looking at like the literature or whatever. But I learned that the doll Peggy is housed in this museum. And y'all know who Peggy is. You see the picture and it makes you feel sick. And granted, that did happen to me. I felt very sick to my stomach and just in my sort of head area when I saw that picture years before this happened. She's housed in that museum. And hand up to God, had I known that, that would have been a non-starter. Because I've always believed in this shit, believed in this stuff, even though I can curse good. Yeah. Before I even had like direct face-to-face, like, you know, an experience like this, I've always had respect for it, just instinctually and, you know, ancestrally. And I was just like, okay, this makes me really uncomfortable, but we're here. And the tour guide, you know, is kind of giving us the ropes and whatever, and says something to the effect of, oh, you know, sometimes the house picks somebody to pick on or like have a crush on or whatever she said. And I'm just like, whatever, you know. So we're going through the tour. Everything is, you know, well and good. And the first red flag for me, because I feel like I'm having a good time, really, until we get to this room that contains something called a dibuk box. And this particular, and I'm kind of just retelling it from my understanding, because I'm not of the Jewish faith or ethnicity. So I, even though I have a lot of respect for that culture, I'm not of it, so I can't really speak with authority. But the way I understand it and the way they explained it was, when someone is wronged in the Jewish tradition, if it's really, really bad, they might create something called a dibuk box, which contains like just different article, like little items and personal effects sometimes, like, you know, fingernails or something to that, to summon a spirit, an avenging spirit. And when they told me that this box was from one of the camps, one of the camps, I was like, absolutely not. Why the hell would you have this on display?
Right.
I don't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel respectful to be treating this.
Feels disrespectful for sure.
Okay? So, in the way that this was set up is like there's a little alcove, like a little lobby area, and then the box is behind another door. So I said, I'm gonna stay in this lobby area and just chill. Y'all do what you do. Come. She said that's fine. The tour guide said that's fine. I'll come get you. Just make sure you close the door behind you when we meet back out in the hallway. And I'm like, cool, cool, cool. So mind you, there was a movie about this, and I can't remember what it was called, but it starred Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Odette Annable. And they were playing clips of that in this lobby area. And it creeped me out. And I was feeling like little like gusts of air and stuff around me, but I looked and I could see there were vents and stuff. I'm just like, okay, this is part of the ambiance. Like when you're going through the little circus part and it smells like popcorn, like this is part of the show. I do this shit for a living. It's okay. You're not going to do it. So they get done looking at the box and the tour guide comes, knocks on the door, gets me. I come out, close the door behind me. I learn the next room and me closing the door. Remember that. That is a foreshadowing. The next room is Peggy's room. So I say, absolutely the fuck not. Yet again, I'm going to stay where I am because I can see it from where I am. And the tour guide, red flag number 2, the tour guide goes, oh, I don't even really like going in Peggy's room. So y'all, so I'm going to hang out here.
Oh my God.
Make sure you greet her because she's a little bit of a diva about that. Make sure you greet her properly. So this woman, the tour guide and I, we're kind of talking or whatever. And she looks over my shoulder and she goes, oh, could you please close the door? Remember I told you to close the door? I was like, I did. And it's one of those old school doors where it's got that metal latch and you hear it latch and you feel it latch. Why did I turn around? About this much. So I'm like, okay, y'all are good. I see what you did there. Okay, you got me, whatever. So they're done greeting Peggy. And it's time to go downstairs. And there is this room that contains, well, first of all, it's kind of paneled to look like the hull of an old school yacht. And it houses pieces of, and honestly, I don't know if I can even be like getting details about what that. Come at me, bro. Come sue me, bro. You're dead ass wrong for selling people tickets to this shit. So anyway, hashtag exposed. So it contains pieces of the boat and like artifacts from the boat where actress Natalie Wood disappeared with her husband. And Christopher Walken. There's like they were on a cruise. They were cruising, and then Natalie Wood disappeared. And I don't think her body was ever found, but she very obviously died. Right. And so we're in this room, and the tour guide is just like blasey, 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 blah. And I feel though I feel something move. Like if you've ever been on a ferry from like, this may be like an East Coast reference, but like a ferry between like New York and New Jersey, it's like very choppy and like and very crappy, like sort of motion sickness inducing motion. I started feeling like that. And I've always been sensitive. Yeah, I've always been sensitive to motion. And I used to get very car sick in certain vehicles and stuff when I was a kid. And I was like, does anyone feel like they are on a boat right now? Like No Lonely Island. Like I'm on a boat. Like I'm on a boat in a museum, right? And everybody's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, are they pumping something under the floor? Is there hydraulics going on here? Because I feel like I am moving, hand up to God. And the tour guide looks at me with this bemused smirk. And I know, and I think she might have even said it. I don't even know if she said it out loud, but I know that it was like, oh, so I guess you're the one at the house got the question on. So at that point, I'm too done. But I'm like, you know what? We paid like $80 for this.
Oh my God, that's how much it is?
it was like $70, like 70 or $80, something like that with tax. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so here's what I'm gonna do for the duration of the tour. They had this like little hutch thing like you would have in like a foyer, like to hang your like wet umbrella on and your boots and stuff, but it was like antique. I was like, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sit my black ass down here and y'all can finish the tour. And there was some other stuff in between this too that just gave me the willies. Like they had Ed Gein's cauldron or whatever that he had like put body parts in, and she said, oh, you know, witches from around the world come to do ceremony. I said, what the fuck? Why would you? Okay, so we're recognizing that this is real. We all believe in this. Why would you facilitate something like that? What the hell? Especially we've got little kids on TikTok, and I'm so passionate about this. Little kids on TikTok trying to hex the moon, and you're just, I don't know. Is it a Craigslist ad? How do you even find a serial killer cauldron? Number one, right? What do you need it for? What kind of ritual do you need?
That's gotta be that cauldron. Like, why you gotta use that one? And
they had Dr. Kevorkian's bus or something too, and I was just like, okay, this is weird, and some Charlie Manson stuff. But by the time we got to that boat, I was like, mm-mm. And I'm glad I sat it out because the next room was the demon room.
Oh.
And granted, this is it's a mansion, many rooms, but not that big. So this hutch is within smelling distance of this room. And I swear to God, when they opened the door to the demon room, I didn't even look inside. But when they opened it, all I could smell was graveyard dirt. Like, and that is a very specific smell. Like not mud, not just wet earth, but wet earth that's like at least 6 feet deep. That is a very specific smell. And I'm like, nobody smells that. She said, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of cedar in there or whatever. I'm like, that's not cedar. I know what cedar smells like. So that's the last room of the tour. And the girl that I went with, she seemed like she had a good time. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel safe. And of course, we exit through the gift shop. And I'm like, let me see what they got. Because this is before, like, you know, I got my crystals and stuff now and all in my amethyst, because I had to learn this stuff to protect myself. But this was pre that. So the only information that I really had come from my good girlfriend, Michelle, who I worked with back at Drexel when I was working for my alma mater. And she told me about like how to smoke cleanse and stuff. And so that kind of popped into my head, and I knew that people, you know, and I know with burning sage is kind of a controversial thing because it's specific to certain cultures, and there's also the popularity of it has depleted it. So I try not to burn it anymore because you can smoke with anything. But at the time, that was what they had in that gift shop, and I was like, I'm gonna pick up a sage bundle. And also there was this candle, this lavender candle with a little amethyst crystal on it. And I have always loved amethyst, even before I knew the metaphysical properties of it. So I was drawn to that. But they didn't have any lighters or anything. So one of the guys that was on the tour with us had a book of matches from one of the casinos. And we are outside of this museum. It's like the parking lot. And I'm trying to light this bundle with my hand shaking with these matches. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Why won't this light? I'm looking at the heat lamp and I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, open flame. I don't know. But but I'm so freaked out. So I'm like, okay, so the matches are not working. So here's what we're going to do because I do not feel safe. The furthest I will go is to the next convenience store to get a lighter. We are going to light this. I'm going to say some prayers, some psalms over us, calling some protection because that was some bullshit. So we do that. and I feel a little bit better afterwards. And then, we go to John Bon Jovi. John Bon Jovi's still fine as hell, whatever. Great show, love it. We we end up the concert. So the concert's over by like midnight, and then we stop at McDonald's for some food. And then it's maybe like 1 by the time we're heading out of Vegas. And we're maybe like half an hour outside of Vegas. And the car, and I don't know if you've driven to Vegas before, if this is going to be your first time, but
I have before, yeah.
Half an hour outside of Vegas is the motherfucking desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just stars and whatever else is out there. I mean, I love nature, but I respect nature, and it's got its place, and I've got my place, and sometimes the twain shall meet, but not at 2:00 in the morning, right? With no protection. And so the car suddenly starts to go ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk. And I'm like, excuse me? This car that you just got serviced today is ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk down the road. So I'm like, okay, we need to pull over. Because it doesn't sound good. We pull over, and it will not start back up.
No.
It will not start back up. All I have on is a cardigan over my blouse, because I'm not expecting, like, I know that it gets cold in the desert, but I'm not expecting to be in the desert outside of a car at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm cold. I'm mad. I'm mad as hell, because I was not prepared for any of what I just experienced.
Right.
Like, and then this thing, and now the car is breaking down. So she's got her parka or whatever, and she calls her dad, who's, we're from the same area, who's back east. And even though it's late as hell, he picks up and he's trying to help her, and she's messing with the fan belt and all that. And excuse me, I'm no help, because I don't even drive. I still don't drive. So I'm not going to get out there in 30-degree weather and in a cardigan and pretend like I know what the hell I'm doing with this automobile. So I'm just sitting there mad. Like, I didn't know. I could have told you some shit like this was going to happen if you told me Peggy was there. So eventually we end up calling AAA. AAA comes. And AAA is like, okay, we can tow you like to a slightly closer town where there is nothing but like one casino, or we can tow you back to Vegas, which is a little bit further. And we're like, okay, let's go to Vegas. Let's go back to Vegas. And of course, wherever they drop us off will not be open. It's like 4:00 in the morning at this point. It will not be open until like 9 or 10 the next day.
Ooh.
So Sapphire, I'm laughing because it's funny now. But she goes, let's get a hotel, and we'll wait it out till the morning until we can get this sorted. And I felt horrible about this at the time, but I'm like, so here is what my intuition is telling me, which is get the fuck out of Vegas. So what I'm going to do is, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a lift to the Greyhound station and take the Greyhound back to Los Angeles, because I don't know you like that in the first place. I didn't say that, but that's like the energy. I don't know you like that in the first place. To be spending a whole extra day I was not supposed to be spending with you here over some bullshit I was not prepared for. Not going to do it. So I did that. I didn't get back to Los Angeles until like 2:00 in the afternoon the next day, because just the way Greyhound is set up. And I get home, I took the Sage bundle with me. Smudge again, light that prayer candle, pray again, and then finally sleep and feel better. And I haven't spoken to her since I reimbursed her for the ticket. So if she sees this, I'm so sorry, baby girl, but just don't ever do no shit like that in your life again. And especially not with an innocent bystander. I mean, if you want to do it, fine. After this, I don't know what to tell you.
I have so many questions because, well, here's something that I gather from this. You said that this was like the first instance that you really felt like, oh, I can feel these things. Right? Like it sort of was like an opening moment for you. I'm wondering, and maybe I'm reaching here, but like everything that led up to you being there, like, do you feel like in some way you were forced to, like something was pushing you to be there to experience that and have all of these revelations?
I 100%, and that's why I'm telling the story today. I'm a big believer in, if I got to go through something, it is my life's mission to make sure that nobody else has to go through it, or as few people as possible have to go through it. So I am so glad, so thankful to God that I survived that experience, and that it just made me stronger, and I wasn't like too scarred from it or whatever. So that, and that's why I said the name of the museum. Why? Like, why would you why would you have all that stuff accessible to the public? Not even like behind a locked door.
It was all just like out in the open.
All just out where you can just interact with it, where your auric field can pass through this. And I didn't even know what that meant, but like at the time, but just being, for anyone who is psychic, don't go there without the proper protection, without knowing it's real. It is real. It's not play. It is real. Protect yourself if you go there.
I've never been there. You said that you've never watched his show, right?
Never.
Are you familiar like with who he is though, like his reputation or anything about him?
Now, I actually had a friend, and this might get me in trouble. I actually had a friend who I was just retelling this story again to a friend of mine who lives in Philly. And she was like, oh, I know who that is. He's like, is basically like, imagine like the dudes from Jersey Shore hunting ghosts. And I'm like, that explains it. Clarissa explained it all. Like, that makes perfect sense.
That's really accurate. Like, he's a ghost bro. That's what like people call him. And like, if you ever watch his show, like I watched a lot of it. It was kind of something I put on years ago, like when I was still working in animation, just kind of needed bullshit to like play while I'm drawing. And his style of ghost hunting is very aggro. Like he'll go into a place and he purposefully provokes the spirits with the intention of like trying to get possessed or like trying to be harmed, like for the purpose of the show. And I'm like, it's the most disrespectful ghost hunting show. And what makes it suck even more is that it's the most popular ghost hunting show. Like that's the biggest show right now. And I'm like, and it's like they do that because they know that that's what people want, because people want that because they think that is, I don't know, like they think that that's just, I don't know, more entertaining or like something will happen. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't like that.
And something I can say, and I feel like this is coming from spirit right now, he can afford to have people who really know what the hell they're doing protect him, give him the right kind of amulets, cleanse him properly. I'm sure he's got somebody on the payroll, right?
Who knows what the hell, a millionaire.
Who knows how to keep him safe. But what he's doing is setting a terrible example for people who don't have access to that. And I'm going to put it to you straight. Like, there's only so much of that you can do if you're purposely provoked before all your protections run out. And I feel like homeboy is probably virgin on that. So Zach Bagans, baby, I am appealing to you. Get your life right. Stop doing that shit. Don't do that because it's real. Okay? And it's so, and I honestly, not to like bring social justice into it, but I do think that this is very important. The history that a lot of the time that the dominant culture that is, you know, a white supremacist culture in this country has treated ancestral practices of people of color, our remains. Every time I see one of those unboxing videos of a mummy, it pisses me off.
There was a recent one. Did you see that? I was like, leave it the fuck alone.
Why are we still doing this? We know what's in there. Right? A dead person.
Leave it alone.
And guess what? They set it up so that they would come back. Right? That was their intent. They set that intention. They don't, and they might have thought that meant come back as flesh and blood. But when that intention is out there, they might just come back in another way. They might come back in your rearview mirror when you're not looking. Or, I mean, looking out the corner of your eye. Like, people do not understand how real this is. And thank you, Ann Duke. I will preach. You know why? Because I was fascinated by this stuff. But I still had a level of respect for it. I knew it was real enough that I wouldn't, like I tell you, I don't mess with Ouija boards. I told you about that. I've always come at it with that level of respect. So I have been mostly respected back. But a lot of it, it's not entertainment. It's not entertainment, right? Like, you need to treat it with the same respect you would treat like anthropology, because we are talking about, even if you don't believe in the afterlife, we're talking about real people who lived. Anybody doing that, digging up your remains, and I know you're like, well, I wouldn't care. You can't say that. You don't know till you're there, especially with the intent is to take a body out of Africa and put it in some 9 times out of 10. I mean, I don't know where they're housing that body, that person's remains now, but 9 times out of 10 to end up somewhere in Britain, or, you know, where they're charging people $25 a pop to see it.
It feels really wrong.
How do people feel about that? Especially when they were doing that to people of color while they're alive, then doing it to their dead ancestors, right? Like,
and see, you bring up a really important point, because like, even with horror entertainment too, with a lot of horror movies, we tend to see like what do you call it? Like the mystical aspects of the movie, or like it's always something like super foreign, or like, you know, the trope of, oh, you like the Native American burial grounds, or it's like the source of all of the stuff happening is always like from people of color's culture. It's always seen as like what's the word I'm thinking of? The chaos, or the cause of like the chaos, or it's like, oh, it's very like mysterious, and it's like it's always just seen as very othered or dangerous, and that carries over into the way that people perceive the paranormal. I talk about this all the time so I'm on a Travel Channel show, and every time they show like a clip from the Philippines, I always say, look, this shit's real to Filipinos. Like, I'm not going to sit here and like pretend like, oh, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know if I'm I'm making my point, but like, just I think the problem comes from the fact that like, well, half of the population claims to not believe in ghosts, but like ghost is such a loaded word. Like, if half the population doesn't even believe that there is some sort of supernatural reality to our world, that's going to make them not respect aspects of supernatural culture.
Absolutely. And here's my thing. Do we not learn that energy can either be created or destroyed? It is just transferred, right? Science. Okay. Consciousness is energy. Where does that go? Right? Like, even if you were like, and I get it. I'm not trying to like force any beliefs on anybody. I get it. Before I encountered it face to face, I was agnostic. I was raised very Christian. And then I kind of went to the agnostic, and now I'm like, whatever, the labels are not important. I just know that this life is not the end. But it's so, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going on a tangent. Could you please remind me of the point that I was responding to?
Oh no.
The disbelief and like, was that was just what, like, how half the population's like, half this is fake.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, the reason why I think is because of the representation of the paranormal. Like I mentioned before, Ghost Adventures, #1 paranormal show in the world, and just the worst representation of how we should be treating spirits. And oh no, wait, there was another point that I wanted to make. What was I gonna say? Oh no. It wasn't about Ghost Adventures. It was about... It'll come to me. Okay. But
was it about the Philippines? The culture, you brought up the clips they would show from the Philippines, and how you're like, this is like real. Like, y'all are treating it like I believe.
Right.
My grandma was talking about this stuff since I was like, yay, hi, and you're just gonna...
That reminds me. Okay, thank you for helping me get there. So, like, for my podcast, I talk to a lot of different people who have a lot of different levels of connection to the spirit world. So I've been learning a lot. And probably the person I'm seeing tomorrow, Manong Lang Wilkin, he's a Mamba Batok. He does the traditional Filipino tattoos. In my interview with him, he said that I think it's really ignorant of us to think that our ancestors didn't know what they were talking about, simply because they lived a long time ago. And like, they have so many stories and so many traditions, and it's really arrogant of us in our modern time to think that none of that matters anymore, or none of that was real. It's like that how we've become so unbelievably far removed from spirituality, and we often forget that, like, this was humans, we were so much more connected with nature than we are now. Like, when you were in a ship, you would like look at the stars to like figure out where you're going, or you look at the sun to like figure out the time, or you like everything about human nature is connected to nature. But like, because we have like tools and stuff to like help us not have to worry about that, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's just like a side effect is that we no longer feel the need to connect with the natural GPS of the world, with like all those things that are like in us. And so it's sort of being like evolved out of us, but we can't let that happen.
I feel, and one thing I'm gonna say is I do feel like you always find your way back home. We're finding our way back to these practices, and a lot of them are still being co-opted. I know I told you about the cat wrestling story. I don't know if we have enough time to get into that, but that's an example of what we're talking about here. But me especially, as someone who is descended from enslaved Africans, I know that they had to, in order for me to be here today, that is wisdom that I need to access for them to have survived that and survive Jim Crow, survive all that, and then carry these ideas with them as well, right? That they're that important that through all that, we still hold on to these practices, right? We're being oppressed left and right, and we still find time to talk about throwing some salt over your shoulder and saying your psalms and stuff and saying spiritually protected too, right? Like that survival instinct and survival knowledge that they had, we need. And somebody was saying this on Twitter. There's this thing that some people will say in the Black community, especially when we're talking about oppression, like, oh, we're not our ancestors, we'll whoop ass, or something like that. And the person, I think it might have been oh God, his name escapes me, but he said that is one of the most disrespectful things I've ever heard in my life, because you do not know. First of all, a lot of them were whooping ass, if not physically, in their own way, through a lot of these traditions that we, hoodoo, which I'm not a practitioner of, but I do know that I have had that in my bloodline. And I do connect to an ancestor who did practice it. But that kind of knowledge is how we stayed here. It's how we got here. There's a reason. If it wasn't important, why would people systemically try and strip it, right? And make it so that you can't practice it openly. And even this, I know this kind of looks like a turban, and I don't want to I didn't want to feed it. I was a little self-conscious. I was like, I don't want it to look like a psychic turban, You
didn't even think that at all.
I like to wear these wraps as a reminder of the Tignon laws that my ancestors had to abide by. I couldn't even show their hair in Louisiana. Because their natural beauty was feared so much by white women, right? And so I say all that to say, our ancestors are here for us. And you don't, there are some practices where you have an altar for them and that, and I don't do that necessarily. I have the privilege of being able to just speak with them through my heart center, or channel them verbally, or sometimes have them speak through me and say things that need to be said, even when I being, formerly meek and mild Chris, don't want to say it, but when it serves me to say it, them in spirit, right, together. But we need that to survive all the craziness, because if I can't be the only one who notices this, but 2020 is not playing by the same rules. Like all that, like the oh well, we don't know, like we only believe what we can see. I never thought I would see a pandemic and murder hornets and like super tornadoes and whatever, or whatever the hell the trop, like at the same time, right? So we gotta try, and not even something new, but like we gotta try some other stuff. We gotta acknowledge that like the answer is where the twain shall meet, science and spirituality. I'm very much about that too, and I really do believe that science supports spirituality more than people would like to say. I mean, the government would not have had a team of remote viewers training if there wasn't some sort of empirical proof that the shit worked, right? So so that's my soapbox. But I wanted to leave a little, first of all, I'll let you say your thoughts, but I brought the cards.
Yay! Oh no, that was a perfect little conclusion to our discussion before we move into readings. Oh my gosh. So what type of reading are you gonna do? Is it like how do you do it?
I do an intuitive oracle reading. I use the Kim Kranz Animal Spirit deck, not to be confused with Spirit Animal. She's not doing anything like appropriative, like assigning to the spirit animals or anything. It's just a deck that recognizes that animals have certain archetypal characteristics that reflect humans, how we're all sort of connected. It's a very beautiful deck, very popular among readers on YouTube. And it's the only deck that I use at this point to do my own readings. I started doing Zoom readings during to make up for the economy being what it is. But not enough for it to be like a business. So
One day.
Well, hopefully I my other business will. Yeah, but I still have, these came at a very pivotal moment. I went through some things a year and a half ago that were very terrifying. I lost friends. I didn't know what was going on fully. By the time I got to handle what was going on. It was a Kundalini emergence that the West and our Western thought was not equipped to handle. And that sort of came with me recognizing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am very psychic and that it's a blessing. It's not the multiple the multiple contradicting sort of medical whatever that have been ascribed to it. So I just say all that to say I cut the deck just to shuffle, and I got the crocodile card. And for me, this crocodile card, personally, it symbolizes root work. Because I think crocodile, Louisiana, Florida. Personally, I wrote a story involving root work that it was called cocodrie, which is the French word for crocodile. And so I feel like this is popping up for a reason. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's someone in the chat who is experiencing sort of a call to their family's hoodoo roots or whatever. And so I'm just gonna, and I always start off with a quick little prayer, just something jumped out. Dear God, thank you so much for blessing this reading. I'm calling in the angels, Archangel Michael, to protect these messages and ensure that they are to our highest good and our highest benefit. Thank you so much. Amen. Okay, so one card jumped out, and this is a collective reading. This is energy from people in the chat, and I might pick up on something specifically from you. Sometimes ancestors will roll through and like give me information directly. Ooh, that jumped right on out. To deliver. And I know, I have some friends that I've done this for that can verify. I've predicted people's like move-in dates or and described photographs of people's parents like at their first communion or something. So sometimes the ancestors will pop in and say hi. I actually do think that is it. The 3 card spread we have here, I'm going to flip them over one by one. I'm being led. Okay. The first one I got is the Cobra. And this card for me is usually, because a lot of these cards have like shorthands for me as a reader, and if it's not the right meaning, I'll sort of be led to walk it back and sort of reassess. But this card typically has like the HBIC energy. The king cobra, I think, is the world's largest venomous snake. And it doesn't have a negative connotation, this one. Some of the cards, if they come out like, I'll be like, okay, that's a warning. And sometimes it feels like in like a family dynamic or like a group dynamic, perhaps someone you're living with or someone you're working with. And I'm getting that this might be someone in the chat, possibly. The coloration that I'm getting here is very sort of, and it's I don't know if you can see it. It goes from sort of like this yellow all the way down to this purple. But it's missing a few sort of, the energy centers all have the corresponding colors. It's missing some of the few colors in between. So I'm not getting that this is pertaining to a specific energy center. What I am getting, though, I think there's something with someone's older sister. So if you're having issues with an older sister, I'm getting that it's not about you. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. And this might also pertain to someone who watches this later on YouTube, because this is how YouTube readers do it too. The collective readings. I'm getting something about someone's older sister, kind of a domineering personality. And I'm just clutching this moonstone here for black moonstone for clarity. It's about jealousy, baby. Whoever this is, it's about jealousy. It is what it is. Okay. This card here. Okay. So this mouse card. This mouse card has a specific meaning to me because just of something that happened where like I warned somebody that something was going to happen. And I saw a mouse, or I think it was a mouse. It wasn't a rat. I saw a mouse, and that was kind of like the tipping point of. Basically, I'll go into it. I don't think this has that meaning though for me. This is something else. I think this is more about someone's timidness. I'm getting something about like a speech, not impediment or delay, but perhaps something to do with someone learning. I think maybe English is a second language or something, or a third language, or maybe even fourth language, just English not as a native language. And they are feeling self-conscious about some sort of speaking opportunity. And just speak from your heart. Just speak from your heart. Energy is universal. People get what you are saying from your energy. And anyone who makes a big deal about not completely understanding every single syllable is just being a dickhead. Okay? 9 times out of 10, people understand exactly what you are saying if they want to. So don't let anybody else's ignorance stop you from speaking. And I feel like that might be somebody who's going to come across this. And I try not to give dates, but I feel like somebody who's going to come across this within the first week of this being posted to YouTube. Okay. All right. This lizard card. Okay. So this lizard card has a very specific meaning to me as a reader. It corresponds to the dragon card, which is actually the card that they use on the box. I'm sorry. It's like the graphic that they use on the box. And I wish I could show you the dragon card. Maybe it's on the bottom of the deck. No, you got the butterfly on the bottom. But yeah, and that's a very personal symbol for me too. But this lizard here, it looks very similar graphically. And you can look this up. I actually have posted the dragon card on my social media too, so you can compare it. Just with the gradation in the scales and the scaling, these are companion cards. They echo each other. And I you would have to ask Kim Kranz if these were drawn to be that, but they definitely have similar graphic motifs. And I say that to say the dragon card is representative of somebody who is kind of a master, just all around, someone who is here with a purpose and who knows they're here with a purpose. Typically someone who's very psychic, someone who, I'm talking about like soul contract level stuff, like you, before you incarnated here, you decided you had some shit to do. And this card reminds me of a mimic of that, because first of all, this lizard is standing next to another larger scaled animal that we can't see, but I feel like is implied to be the dragon because of the coloration and the scales. However, this is not a chameleon. This looks very iguana-like, but it's still changing its colors to emulate that dragon. So this card to me speaks of someone who is, I'm getting monkey see, monkey do. I'm getting competition. from someone who is not even within your league necessarily. Someone who is only competing with you for the purpose of competing with you, not because they want to do the things you do, but just because they see a dragon and they want to be a dragon. And I think this is an overall sort of message. And now this is just kind of just me channeling, and I'm just gonna bring in my amethyst too with my moonstone. I know a lot of you out there have been gaslit to feel like you were crazy because of things that you experienced, even by people who knew, who should have known, right? Should have known the difference. And I know crazy, and I don't want to. I try not to use the word crazy because it is a slur. And you know, Dave Chappelle, who I don't align with on a lot of things in recent years. Something I do align with him on is that calling someone crazy is like one of the worst things you can do, because it just completely dismisses just everything. If it is somebody who, especially if it is somebody with a mental illness, saying that just because you have a mental illness, you're not. A lot of people have them. That doesn't mean, right? But I'm talking about people who perhaps have had experiences that were ascribed as that. And, you know, there's a difference. There's a difference. But when you really, truly know the difference, hold on to that and do research, because you'll find that you're not nearly as alone as you think you are. I think we are in a time right now where the collective, where just the Earth's energy is going through a very, very major shift. We are kind of in we are in the age of Aquarius, that they sang about in Hair. A big energetic shift. A lot of people waking up to the spiritual, a lot of people accepting the call as light workers. And a lot of people having Kundalini experiences emerging. So if you are struggling with something, and you know you feel like perhaps it's being pathologized and it doesn't need to be. And of course, it's important to know the difference, right? And sometimes we can't tell the difference, but if you know that you know that you know the difference, do your research, and you will find a lot of this stuff has been validated by texts that predate us by thousands of years. I like to refer to the Vedas, which predate the Christian Bible by like 5,000 years, right? Confirm a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today. So just do your own research and find like-minded people. And if it is something where it's an issue that needs to be treated, you know, do that. But if you know that it's not, if you know that it's not a hallucination, it's a vision, then just know that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh man, this is like one of my favorite OUIJA Wednesdays I've ever done.
I mean, I love this. I love this. And we did talk a little bit about the, you know, that you usually do Ouija board. When you do OUIJA Wednesday, you'll do the Ouija board in person. I just wanted to recommend a couple of stones for you for just because I personally, you know, it's a personal choice, right? And you had good experiences on it. So just to keep it that way, I want to show you a selenite tower, which invites in the angelic, the presence of the angelic. You've also got obsidian and some black tourmaline, right?
I have all of those.
Yeah, just put those out, put them on the board. You might do a crystal grid on, like put one in each corner when you're using it.
Okay, I haven't touched it since. But yeah, oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Oh, wait, we have it before we sign off here. Chris, do you do private readings? I'm drawn to you in a good way.
I do them via Zoom. You can just hit me up on any of the social media that
And I've got them
my,
here.
my Twitter, my Instagram, and I usually do them weekdays at very specific time. I'm producing movies right now. So I'll have to make things work and probably shift some things around in the next week or so. But I usually do them between 2 and 4 PST, Pacific Standard Time.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, Chris. This has been really fun, and you are more than welcome to come back on maybe an actual Wednesday in the future when I'm not out of town. Yeah, you were always welcome back. This was great.
I would love to. I'd love to do this again.
Yay, awesome. So we did already shout out your socials, but is there anything else that you'd like to plug before we say goodnight?
That's it. Just be good to yourself, be good to each other, and just lead with love. That should just lead with love. That's all I got.
I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody in the chat. I'll say goodbye to the names that are here. SF Preciosa 725, KGM 1804, Maddie Matt. Matt's one of my patrons. Hi, Matt. Peabody Baby Girl. All right. Good night, everybody.
Night.